Thank you for tuning into the Island Treasures podcast. We value the insights shared by our guests and hosts, but it's important to note that their personal experiences are intended to inform and encourage, and not to replace professional, legal, or medical advice. With that, we are ready for today's exciting episode. Welcome to Island Treasures mini podcast for caregivers. This episode is brought to you by Alongside Caregiver Consulting, and I am your host and caregiver consultant, Alison Van Schie from beautiful Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. The Island Treasures podcast usually features caregiving stories from the perspective of the caregiver, but the full episode featuring Jenna Rumberger tells her caregiving story from the perspective of the one receiving care. Jenna became a caregiving recipient when she experienced a cardiac arrest at the age of 32.
So last summer, I was only 32 years old. It was completely unexpected. I had absolutely no risk factors or any type of warnings, no family history of cardiac arrest. So it was just completely out of nowhere.
Up to this point, Jenna had been working as a geriatric case manager. She is a licensed social worker, and after her cardiac arrest, she seized the opportunity to start her own private practice.
I started my own private practice called Aging with a Plan, and I provide individual therapy and consultation for older adults and family caregivers who are impacted by chronic illness. And I really have a specialization and a passion for memory loss and dementia specifically. So on the therapy side of things, I can support older adults and caregivers. And then the consultation side of things is really the practical aspects of aging and caregiving. So giving information and guidance around in-home services, or if someone is not able to stay in their home, what is a higher level of care? What are the different retirement communities or long-term care communities? And then also the planning stage, so advanced care planning and reviewing end-of-life options.
Let's hear more about advanced care planning from Jenna and why it is so important.
I think my personal story of having the cardiac arrest just proves that no matter what your age is or what your health status is, we just never know when we're going to have a medical emergency. And that's why I really encourage everyone, whether it's in my private practice or my personal life, please start having these conversations now, sooner rather than later. Please let your family or your loved ones know what type of medical treatment you would want if you couldn't communicate your own decisions. For example, with myself, when I had CPR, my ribs were cracked, and that was so painful during my recovery. It probably took about 8 weeks or so for my ribs to heal. And so this is just part of the side effects or the downside to getting this life-saving treatment. So I always think for myself, if I was really sick, if I had a terminal illness or cancer, would I want CPR? Would I want it to be resuscitated? Would I want all these life-saving treatments? And I don't know if I would. And so I would want to talk to my doctor and my healthcare team and ask them, what are the pros and cons to all these treatments? How much pain is this going to cause? And what's the likelihood that I can recover? And so those are the type of questions we want to ask when we're thinking about advanced care planning.
Would you want CPR or all these life-saving treatments? What are your personal health goals? And how do you go about starting your own advanced care plan?
So you can go to theconversationproject.org, and you can find a bunch of really helpful resources and tools to get started with advanced care planning. So they have multiple guides. One's called the Conversation Starter Guide, and that's for yourself to really sit down and ask yourself what matters to you. And they have a list of questions and prompts that you can fill out, so you can kind of gather your thoughts about what type of medical wishes you might want. And then you can prepare yourself to talk to your loved ones about it. And then they have free templates for you to actually complete the documents. So with advanced care planning for healthcare, the two most common documents are your living will And then there's also the durable power of attorney for healthcare.
Listen to Jenna's thoughts to counter our reluctance to start these conversations before we are in crisis.
We really don't talk about death and dying very much. It's still very stigmatized. It's very scary. It's the unknown. But we can do so many helpful things to prepare ourselves and to prepare our families. And so advanced care planning's having these difficult conversations now rather than when you're in that medical emergency and you're in crisis and all your emotions are heightened. It's really the best gift that you can give your family is to have these conversations to get your documents and all your ducks in order.
From her personal experience, Jenna created a resource to prepare for when a medical emergency happens. Here's more about that free resource.
And I have a free handout on my website if anyone wants to take a look. So it's on the front page at the bottom, and you can click get the free handout. And it says, "Are you ready for a medical emergency?" You want to be prepared before the medical emergency happens. So that's having all your contact information, your health insurance card, emergency contacts. If you already have your power of attorney documents, having a copy listed there. If you have a living will and there are specific medical wishes you want the doctors to follow, it's basically having all the checklist or your face sheet, all of your medications that you take, what medical conditions do you have? If you have specific care preferences, do you use any specific durable medical equipment? You can create your own portable binder to have at your fingertips so that when a medical emergency happens, you have all of your information stored in one place that's easily accessible.
Jenna's story is a stark reminder of the unpredictability of medical emergencies. Are you equipped to deal with such situations for yourself or in your own family? If not, be sure to visit Jenna's website, agingwithaplan.org, for her free resource, and fill your own binder with crucial information so that it's available at your fingertips when it matters most. If you're in the midst of your own caregiving journey and need some supports, I invite you to tap into alongside caregiverconsulting.ca. I recognize how precious your time is, especially as caregivers. And so this mini podcast is designed just for you. And when you have more time, I invite you to listen to the full episode called Her World Turned Upside Down to hear more of Jenna's insights, wisdom, and resources. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Take care.